Ever felt like you needed a secret shortcut, to understanding complex tech concepts, getting straight to those aha moments without wading through all the dense jargon, like bypassing the textbook stuff and getting right to what truly matters? Well, today we're embarking on a deep dive into something called lazy initialization in Spring Boot. Now, if you're just starting out, uh, Spring Boot is this super popular tool, a framework really, for building Java web applications pretty quickly. And lazy initialization is a core technique inside it that can really change how efficiently your applications run. We've basically taken a concise, beginner-friendly summary that explains the concept, why it's used, the problems it solves, all tailored to help you, especially if you're newer to development, understand how it works and why it's useful.
Yeah, our mission for you today is really to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge here. We want to make this topic, which can sound a bit abstract, really clear, relatable, and, instantly useful, even if you're just taking your very first steps into building software.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Lazy initialization. It sounds a bit like strategic procrastination, doesn't it?
Yeah, kinda.
But I'm guessing it's far more clever than just hitting snooze on your code. What's the core idea?
It is strategic, exactly. But, in the best possible way, the basic idea of lazy initialization is super simple. You just delay creating or loading something until it's absolutely needed, instead of doing everything up front.
Okay,
Think of it like packing for a trip. You only put stuff in your suitcase right when you're sure you'll use it, yeah. Instead of packing like everything you own just in case, saves time, saves effort.
right. Okay. And when we talk about Spring Boot, what are these things we're talking about delaying? What gets paxed later?
Good question. That's where beans come in. In the Spring world, these beans are basically the fundamental building blocks of your application. Imagine your app is like a high-tech kitchen, right? Beans are all the specialized appliances, the ingredients. Maybe one bean fetches user data, another processes payments, another handles generating reports, stuff like that.
Got it. Little modular pieces.
Exactly. And the Spring framework itself, it acts like the central control system, maybe the head chef in that kitchen analogy. By default, Spring is pretty eager. It wants to prepare all the ingredients for every single possible dish on the menu, even before the first customer walks in.
Uh-huh.
That's eager initialization. All your application's components, all those beans, they get created immediately when the application starts up. Doesn't matter if they're actually going to be used right away or maybe never.
So with lazy initialization, you're telling this head chef to kind of chill out a bit,
Yeah, basically.
to only chop the onions when someone actually orders the French onion soup,
Mm.
not just because it's potentially on the menu.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. With lazy initialization, you're instructing the Spring container, that head chef, to hold off on creating specific beans, or maybe even all of them, until they're first requested or needed by another part of your app.
Hmm.
So for instance, if your app has a bean just for generating, let's say, really complex financial reports, but nobody asks for a report right at startup,
Then Spring Boot just doesn't bother making it yet.
exactly. It won't create that bean in memory, saving resources right then and there.
What's really interesting there is the flexibility you mentioned. You could do this for the whole application or just pick and choose.
Yes, you can. You can enable it globally for the entire application with a simple setting, or you can get really specific and mark individual beans as lazy using special instruction annotations, they're called.
Hmm.
And that flexibility is, well, it's incredibly useful, especially, like you said, for larger applications, the ones with tons of components where maybe only a fraction are needed right at the start. It gives you really fine-grained control over your app's resource footprint.
Okay, so we get the what. We understand the basic idea, the beans, the kitchen analogy. Now, let's dig into the why. This is where it gets really interesting, right? What are the actual tangible benefits of being lazy in Spring Boot? And maybe more importantly, what specific headaches does it help you, the listener, avoid, especially if you're just starting out?
Right. Well, probably the number one benefit, the one people feel immediately, is faster startup time.
Ah, yes. The bane of every developer's existence sometimes.
Totally. One of the biggest frustrations, particularly when you're, learning and rebuilding often, is that slow startup. You hit run and you just wait.
I know that feeling. It's like watching paint dry while your enthusiasm drains away.
That's not
So
fair.
how does lazy initialization specifically tackle that pain point?
Well, that's its superpower, really,
Right.
creating lots of components, especially complex ones, like, say, database connections or things that talk to external services. That all takes time during startup. Lazy initialization just skips that for the lazy beans. It delays creating those resource-heavy beans until they're actually called upon.
So the app just pops up faster.
Much faster, often. It means your application can potentially boot up in seconds instead of, maybe minutes for a really big one. And for you, the developer, this means way less waiting around during testing.
Right, keeps the momentum going.
Exactly. You can iterate, test your changes much, much quicker, less frustration, more flow.
And I'm guessing that speed translates into saving resources too, right? Less upfront work means less memory, less CPU.
Absolutely. That's the second big win. By only creating beans when they're actively needed, your application uses less computer memory, less RAM, and less processing power overall, especially at startup.
Okay.
Think about it if you're running your app, maybe experimenting in a cloud environment. Those costs are often directly tied to how much memory and CPU you consume.
Yeah, the pay-as-you-go model.
Right. So lazy initialization can mean you're literally paying less, especially on those free tiers or smaller instances where every megabyte counts. It's a huge bonus when you're just starting out and trying to keep costs down.
So it's faster, cheaper. That's already pretty compelling. Does it help when things get bigger, like with scalability?
It absolutely does. Think about large, complex applications. Maybe they're built as microservices, those smaller, independent applications that work together.
Mm-hmm.
Not all parts of that bigger system are used all the time or by every user simultaneously. Lazy initialization helps ensure that only the necessary pieces are loaded and running. This makes it much easier to handle more users or more requests without overloading your system because you're not carrying the weight of unused components. It's about smarter resource allocation, kind of on the fly.
That sounds like it simplifies the development side too. As a beginner, sometimes just getting a bigger app to run without hitting memory limits or weird errors feels like a huge win.
It really does simplify things, yeah. For beginners, this technique genuinely lowers the complexity barrier for managing a potentially large application. You don't need to worry about optimizing every single component right from the start because, well, the unused parts simply won't consume resources until they're actually called upon.
So you can focus on the feature you're actually building.
Exactly. You can focus on building features, getting things working, without getting bogged down by resource management worries for components you aren't even touching yet. And it means you can build in features that are rarely used, maybe admin tools, special one-off reports, without them slowing down the core experience for your everyday users. They just sit there costing nothing until needed.
Okay, so we've clearly established that lazy in this context is often smarter, faster startup, less resource use, simpler development. But anything in software, there's always a time and a place, right? It's about using the right tool for the job. When is lazy initialization really the hero?
Yeah.
And are there any scenarios where it might actually cause problems?
That's a really crucial point. It's definitely not a magic wand for every situation. Lazy initialization is ideal for, say, applications with lots of components where only some are used frequently.
Hmm.
Think larger web apps, content management systems, or those microservices we mentioned. Anywhere where fast startup time is really critical. Also, it's fantastic in environments where you have limited memory or processing power, maybe small cloud servers, embedded systems, that kind of thing.
And for development and testing, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. A lifesaver there just for speeding up those feedback loops. However, it's not always the best choice. Think about real-time systems or applications where every single component must be instantly ready the second the app starts.
Like what? Financial trading, safety systems.
Exactly. Things like financial trading platforms, critical infrastructure monitoring, maybe safety critical systems in a car or plane. In those cases, eager initialization loading everything up front might actually be better.
Why is that?
Because you want to avoid even the tiniest first-time delay that can happen when a lazy bean is first accessed and needs to be created on the spot. You also want to know immediately at startup if any critical component is broken, rather than finding out later.
Okay, that makes total sense. You wouldn't want your car's airbag controller to be lazily initialized
Yeah.
right before an accident.
Precisely. You want that ready and verified the moment you turn the key.
Are there any other, maybe less dramatic potential pitfalls or things to watch out for with lazy initialization?
Yeah, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. We mentioned the small one-time delay when a bean is first used. Usually it's minor, users probably won't notice, but it is there. More importantly, perhaps, is that it can sometimes hide configuration problems or bugs.
How so?
Well, if a specific bean is misconfigured, or maybe it depends on something else that isn't set up right, you might not find out about that problem during application startup like you would with eager initialization. The error might only surface later when that bean is actually requested and Spring tries and fails to create it.
Ah, so it could make debugging a little trickier. The failure happens later in the process, maybe when a user tries to do something specific.
Potentially, yes. It shifts when you might discover certain types of errors from startup time to runtime. It's like finding out you have a flat tire only when you actually try to drive the car instead of seeing it in the garage beforehand.
Okay, good analogy. So for beginners then, what's the practical advice? How should they approach this?
I'd say for beginners, starting with lazy initialization for non-critical components is a really safe and effective way to learn.
Like maybe try it on that reporting module we talked about, but not on the core user authentication part.
Exactly. Try it on things that aren't essential for the basic functioning of the app right at startup. This lets you experience the benefits, the faster startup, the lower resource use, without risking major headaches if something goes slightly wrong with the Lazy Beans configuration. It allows you to experiment more freely.
So pulling it all together then,
Yeah.
what does this all mean for you, the listener, especially if you're just starting your journey into building applications, maybe specifically with Spring Boot?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that lazy initialization can make your applications feel faster and lighter right from the get-go, and often without you needing to dive super deep into complex performance tuning right away.
Yeah, lowers the barrier a bit.
It really does. It reduces that feeling of being overwhelmed when you start building larger apps because you know your resources are being focused only on what's actively being used at any given moment. And like we discussed, it can genuinely save you money in cloud setups. That's a massive win when you're learning and experimenting with deployment, maybe on a tight budget.
And it sounds relatively easy to switch on.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it with Spring Boot. It integrates really smoothly with its simple configuration style. You can often enable it with just a line or two in a config file or a simple annotation. Minimal effort for potentially significant gains.
So by understanding and, strategically using lazy initialization, you're not just writing code, you're actually building more efficient, faster starting applications that use resources wisely. You're proactively solving some of those common beginner problems like painfully slow startups or hitting memory limits, all while keeping your development process pretty smooth and straightforward. We've really unpacked how being lazy here can actually mean, well, smarter, faster, and definitely more cost-effective for your applications.
Absolutely. And thinking about this, it raises an important question for you to maybe mull over after this. In this world of increasing cloud native applications, microservices becoming more common, how might that balance between eager and lazy initialization continue to shift? What new challenges, maybe around performance or debugging, might pop up as we design more systems to be just in time rather than fully prepped and ready from the absolute start?
That's a great point to ponder. What really stands out to you from this deep dive today? How might you apply this kind of lazy but actually highly efficient thinking to other areas of your learning or maybe even your daily work? Lots to think about there.